Hi, welcome back to the Healthy Practitioner Podcast. Today is interesting. We're doing a little role reversal today. Mark is here with me, and I'm going to have him introduce himself. And he just wanted to kind of pick my brain and be a student. So I'm going to let him take some of the reins throughout this one, but it'll be exciting. We'll learn a lot. Hi, this is Stephanie. You're listening to the Healthy Practitioner Podcast, where we talk health, wellness, and all things detox. Hey, Mark, welcome to the show.
How's it going? Super happy to be here.
Yeah.
My name is Mark Beno, 24 years old. I am a full-time business owner and entrepreneur. I own my own video production company. And then I'm also an assistant strength and conditioning coach at North Scott High School. I've been doing that for about 2.5 years. I got my degree from St. Ambrose in kinesiology. Always thought that I was going to be a full-time strength coach, found videography, and then I just went into owning my own business, and then this job arose, and I took it and actually used my degree. But, yeah.
And I met you through videography, and so I know you always ask a lot of really great questions. So I'm glad that you're here. And I didn't know your kinesiology background. What got you into doing holistic, integrative healthcare?
So health has always been just a major factor in my life. Really started young. My dad he worked out all the time. He was very fit. He was in the basement working out probably 3 to 4 days a week. My mom is a big Pilates person, and she also does mini triathlons. So health and fitness has always been very, very strong in my life. But going into high school, I was a football player, and I met a guy named Tony Stewart at North Scott High School. He's our strength and conditioning coach there. And I wanted to be him. I wanted to do his job. I wanted to coach people. I wanted to be in the fitness realm. I wanted to get people big and strong and healthy and everything. So that's what took me into kinesiology at St. Ambrose. It was totally, I want to be a strength coach. I want to help athletes. I want to just build great people because of the energy that I felt within the North Scott weight room while I was there in high school. So from there, graduated, found my work, but I just realized that everything, I had my journey in college. I had my drinking phase my freshman year, and that is totally true. From there, I realized how much drinking impacted me playing sports. I understood how much it impacted my asthma at the time. I understood how my diet completely changed my energy levels and my focus in classes. And then from there, I was just completely conscious of what I was putting in my body. Then now owning a home, being married for 3 months now.
Yeah, congrats.
Thank you. I've just, me and my wife, we've been very conscious of what's going into our body, into our household, and wanting to have a family here in the future. How are we going to set up our kids for success? How are we going to be preventative from disease and sickness? So that's kind of exactly why I'm here, and I'm so excited to talk to you today.
I love that, and I love that you're 24. You hear all the time that older people that, they're just like, oh, these generation XYZs, like they're not doing much. But when I see the young people that come and ask me questions, I'm like, wow, where was I at 24? And what was I thinking? I wish that I was understanding my body the way it was, because I would have prevented a lot of disease and health ailments for me. And so I love seeing people take proactive healthcare choices in their young 20s, because it's such a pivotal time in life. And I'm okay with yes, you go through the college drinking stage and you're doing, you're just experimenting, you're becoming independent, but it's like, okay, well, what do you do with that? Do you stay in that? Because some people are, in their 60s and they're still stuck in their, college 20 days. So I love that you're getting in this, okay, we have a family and now and you're doing this as a family with your wife. That's really important. So yeah, ask me what, you're curious about, and I'll try to answer the best I can.
Perfect. Well, my first question is just about energy as a whole. So I would consider myself to be high functioning. A lot of people, my following, and that's truly like I want to give this information to my following just as well as yours. My day is just booked, like totally stuffed full. What are some things that I need to be conscious of when in regards to having high energy and keeping that going, and then providing as much as I can into my work, into my wife, into those kids that I'm coaching? Whether that be some of my nutrition, whether that means hydration, whether that is supplements. I've gone the caffeine route, and I'm a big coffee drinker still. However, I stopped energy drinks. Perfect. And I stopped so much with high sugar lattes and everything like that.
Yeah.
So,
that's energy is a really big conversation, and when you're in your 20s, enjoy all of it that you can. And I do truly believe that like our 20s are prepping us to have children when we're older, because I mean, like the sleepless nights, like you don't understand how much energy it takes for those tasks. So like you're prepping your body for it right now. But I will say, if I could tell my younger self anything, it was protect your adrenal glands. So your adrenals sit on top of your kidneys. They produce cortisol. They produce sex hormones. They help balance our blood pressure. And a lot of times when we're high functioning, successful young adults, we're abusing them. You know, we're in constant state of a stress, whether it be a good stress or not so good stress, right? If we're high achieving, like we're just going. And when we do that, we are pushing out all of this, the adrenals, like work them. And back in the day, the adrenals were meant to do that, to like save us from a saber-toothed tiger a tiger that was running from us. Like it was our instincts to like save ourselves. You'll see like women that pull big cars off of their children. Like all of a sudden they get the surge and they can lift 2,000 pounds, right?
Yes.
That is a mechanism that our body is amazingly capable of. But if we're constantly surging our system with cortisol, it will lead to increased inflammation. It will lead to increased storage of fat because we're not using our insulin and glucose correctly. And then it will lead to essentially burnout at the end of the day, because all of a sudden our adrenals are like, hey, clearly you're not in immediate danger. You're abusing me, and now I can't produce. So then I see all of these men and women in their young mid-20s to mid-30s that have adrenal fatigue. So what I would say to you now is like really protect yourself. And a lot of that's like mental, emotional. What are you doing to protect your body?
Yes. So with that immediately brings to mind of like setting boundaries within my schedule to rest, actually, because it's very easy to say, I don't need to rest, to not schedule that in during the week. Oh, hey, I can go right to coaching, to work, to my workout, to then maybe a little bit of editing or some Netflix and things like that at the very end of the day. It's not always doable, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that what you said, though, like for me, I digest that as setting boundaries within my schedule to rest and not have my mind focusing on 10 different things. Is that kind of what you're...
Totally.
Yeah.
And what are the 5 things that you do as a man that are joyful for you for rest? Like list those out. Ooh. Like for me, a bath. Like that's part of my self-care, but some people don't want to take a bath. They would rather journal or do something creative.
Yes.
So you really have to be intentional too, because I know Mark isn't just going to lay in bed for 30 minutes to, catch up on his so you really have to be intentional about what are you going to do to really relax your system. Do you meditate? Is it something that you can do?
Yep.
Tell me about meditation. Do you have that in your life yet?
So I don't have meditation, but I have been dabbling into breath work. And this is a Gary Brecka clip that I saw with Dana White and talking about how beneficial that is. So that's one thing that I've implemented a little bit here and there and has helped a lot. As far as just like helping myself de-stress and everything, it's a lot of the times like working out for me. I need that, absolutely. However, it's not restful. The mental side of me, though, needs that, and I've always needed that for, as long as I can remember. But outside of that, it's funny because the business that I'm in is so creative, and I used to have that as just a hobby and as a way to take my mind off things. Now, whenever I'm like, I have my passion projects and I have my work projects, and then sometimes when I'm working on my passion projects that are really just helping me rest, now I start to think about my business projects, and I'm like, oh man, like I need to be doing this, or I need to be doing that, or I probably shouldn't be taking this time to just, have fun and be creative in my own sense. Other than that, I am, I love football. There's no doubt about that. So watching football, hanging out and stuff. But I feel like I always come back to the idea of like, oh man, I should be doing this. I should be working on that to-do list. So maybe there's new things that I can implement that can help take me out of that mindset. And
I think
I don't know
right now, I'm just giving you just a general advice, like since your passion project has turned into a career or a job, like it's very common. Like when we were younger, we have all these dreams, and then all of a sudden they are fruitful and they provide finances in our pocket. And when that happens, then we have these responsibilities. All of a sudden that creativity turns to, well, this is an obligation. Yes. And then it takes some of the fun out of it. So it's like now you have to find a couple more things that, like, how can you still tap into your creativity that truly nobody's paying you to do it. Yes. So it's just something, like, just kind of think about, is there something that I can be doing that still elicits the creative mind, because that helps us grow, but that doesn't require stress of a monetary exchange.
I see. No, I appreciate that advice. And I think the advice you're giving me, I think that it helps so many people around me, and, people that follow me and whatnot. So, throughout this podcast, that advice is 100% accepted, and awesome. I'll take it and use it. So
perfect.
Amazing. So I have energy systems and everything. It kind of leads right into the next question. So what are major factors to be conscious of when thinking of long-term health for a young individual? Again, 24 years old. What are some, these people in their 20s? What should they be thinking about within their household, within their schedule, within their diet? A great one. I know you deal so much with cancer. That hasn't hit us yet. How can we be the next era, the changing era that is not getting hit by so many different cancers?
Yeah.
So let's start off first. I literally have a list of, and you can kind of decide, but I have water, I have sleep, I have alcohol usage, personal products, and then food and diet, and then cancer risk. So whichever one you'd like to start with, kind of there.
Let me just kind of start at a basic beginning, and then you can go off of that. So I feel like we are not taught to listen to our body. We were kind of in the generation where our parents both worked full-time jobs, right? It has molded over the years, and full-time jobs. So the marketing industry did a really good job, like, hey, feed them this packaged junk, but we'll pretend that it's healthy. Yes. And then so we'd give it to them, and then we would have these health issues, but maybe our parents weren't in tune to tell us, like, to listen to our body. So we have gas, bloating, acne. We have all of these depression, anxiety, and our parents are busy. And so it's like, okay, well, let's send them to the doctor. And the doctor will be like, well, I have 5 minutes with you, so I'm going to give you this amphetamine, this Adderall, and then we're going to send you on your way. Yes. And so you see how we, like, lose that connection to self. So it's really about your generation, my generation, teaching our children to be aware of their bodies. Yes. Like, okay, you're going to eat that cupcake. How does that make you feel? It didn't make me feel very good. I have a tummy ache now. Yeah. We weren't taught that. And so I think that for people that are, in their teens or early 20s, it's really about getting in tune with yourself. What do you feel like? Are you sensitive to smells? Are you, do you have headaches every day? Yes. Because if you have, just do a symptom checklist. If anybody's listening right now, just write down symptoms that you're experiencing that you might think are normal. Bloating, diarrhea, gas, like none of that stuff is normal. Acne, you don't have to have any of that. So if you're having those symptoms, there's some underlying issue.
Completely.
So that's kind of where the basics.
Yes.
I just really want to hone in on being in tune with your body will help you prevent cancer and disease, because a lot of times cancer has been present in your body for 9+ years before it actually presents itself in the external form.
Yes, completely.
When you see hair falling out, skin with acne, nails that are brittle and thin, that's an internal sign. So when we have that, then it's like, well, there's something internally that's constantly triggering us. So what do we need to do to change our internal atmosphere?
Completely. And not just treating those symptoms, getting to the root cause. This is something that at North Scott, when I am coaching and someone is talking about some of their symptoms, I'm trying to fix the root cause. I'm trying to give them advice. Hey, we are not just going to cover this up with ibuprofen. We are not going to just cover this low energy up with more caffeine, right? And these energy drinks.
Yes.
So in regards to, I guess, more serious health issues, what are, for maybe young people, what are some great resources to first go to before we go and just talk to doctors? And I will say, just from my own personal experience, I do not go to a regular doctor unless there is something very serious happening within my body. If I need something very quickly or something, I will go to a doctor. Otherwise, it's okay. What's actually happening? What am I putting in my body? What has happened within my daily life? How can I fix this in other terms before I go there? So.
Yes.
With that.
So first is taking self-inventory of like, okay, well, I feel really bad today. Well, what were the last couple of days leading up to this? Because that's usually the indicator. And then even going before that, as you're talking about, like, what can we do to like clean up our environments? Removing chemicals from our lifestyle is the most important thing. I teach people that our immune system is like a cup. This is our cup of health. So I would like to say that we're born with an empty, pure glass, but we're not. Some people are filled up with a cup full like this just from their parents, just from they had a mom that was sick or a dad, like, and then they're born with these issues. And so then we throw in a bunch of medications as they're born because they're not doing well. Okay, we fill up their cup. And then they have stressors and anxiety in life, fills up their cup. Then they're exposed to mold. They are living in mold. Mold is a huge illness indicator that a lot of us don't even know about. Chemicals, glyphosate. We live in Iowa, which is a mecca of farmland, glyphosate. And then we're in Galena, right across the river is a lead mining town. So heavy metals. Again, all of this stuff overfills our cup. And that's when we see disease. So that's why I like to say, what can you do to decrease the water in your cup, help your immune system?
100%. I was getting so excited there as you were talking. So you talked about glyphosate, you talked about, mold. I had my experience with mold in college. I can, quick story, but my freshman year, I was an athlete. I was a football player there, and I could tell my energy levels were they were going up and down, up and down, up and down. And then I was noticing that every 3 weeks I was getting sick in the terms of just having like a cough or having drainage or something. And that had never happened before while I was at home. So freshman in college, first time moving out, all of those things. And I'm like going to the doctor, again, a normal doctor, every 3 weeks, every month. And that went on for a little bit till I figured out there was mold in all of my ventilation system within our dorms.
Yes.
College kids, check your dorms for mold. It's crazy how much is out there.
So much mold in dorm rooms. Yes.
What are some ways to look for mold and be conscious of some of the effects of mold, like within daily life, new household, dorms, or
you have a really good example. And one of my best friends, she lives across the country, and last year she went through her own battle of like once a month, her husband would be going back and forth, and she finally got to like maybe the 4th round of like, why am I getting sick here? And they found mold in their baby's like room in the ventilation system. So all of the cleaning of that, and now they haven't been sick since. People, again, they live in it, and then they're just sick all the time, and that's what they just think. And then it leads to autoimmune disease and all these other things. So they never find out the root.
Totally.
What I would suggest, though, for my college clients, I have them do it's called an ERMI test, ERMI. And there's a place, it's called like gotmold.com, that you can buy a pretty cheap, maybe $100 or $150 test that you just leave it in the room, and it like sucks air particles and it will test for mold. Those are the best ways.
That's amazing.
It's a couple $100. Think about how much money you're spending to live in those dorms. It's worth it.
Yes.
Because if it is positive, then the college needs to do something about it, or you need to get out of there. And so I've seen it just so many times. And again, like, you're going to college, there's some anxiety there. You're starting to have bad behaviors. I mean, I shouldn't say bad, but there's more alcohol involved. There's more choices for food. So what are you going to do? A lot of times it's the pizza. It's the not like you're free, you're liberated. So sometimes people go hog wild. And so again, it's just filling up the cup. And then we put something like mold on top of it. It's really damaging.
Really damaging.
So that is what I'd say. We have air purifiers going everywhere. So again, it can be a $60 air purifier. I'd have that going in every dorm room ever. Yep. Filtered water. I mean, I know we'll talk about water later, but again, it's just something like, what can we do to constantly keep our place in check and clean?
Completely. It's funny you say that, because I want to say, a month after, got an air purifier, had everything tested. It would have been great to have a test, to know of a test that I could have done in that dorm room, or even in my apartment after college and stuff. First apartment would have been great to know, hey, let's just check it out. Let's, first month we're here, let's check it out. Let's see what we're actually being exposed to, and maybe change that. Awesome answers.
I will also say with that, a lot of porous product like books and clothes, if you're in a mold damaged room, you have to get rid of them. I know, and it's really hard for people when you have a small fortune in any of those, but bedding, that all of that stuff, it just harbors in. You have to get rid of it. And so that's just a good reminder too, because if you're taking all of these porous things out of one moldy situation and putting them somewhere else, they still have the mold spores in them.
Totally. It's funny, in my case at St. Ambrose, the mold actually got onto my roommate's bedding, his pillow, and all those things, and we didn't know it for a week or 2 weeks. So a lot of fun, but
yeah, wow.
Oh my gosh.
Thanks for bringing that up, because a lot of people, especially college goers, need to hear that. So completely.
So you talked a little bit about diet within that conversation. College, high schoolers, fresh out of college, people don't understand. Some people understand macros. Some people understand micros. Some people understand what's natural and what's not natural. What are some very general guidelines that people should be conscious of when fueling their bodies? And then I'd like to go into maybe a little bit of the athletic side of that too.
Okay. I was going to say, it is really challenging to say
broad.
one size fits all for diet, because what I've learned over the years is that's just not true. I will say though that from the hundreds of people that I have worked with, I always do a clean out of at least a 4-week, but usually 8 to 12-week clean out. Gluten, it's paleo diet, gluten-free, dairy-free. Looking at the grains, getting rid of it, but really just at least gluten and dairy, because those are the two most common inflammatory foods for our body. So our body creates, if you go to a different country, you might be able to tolerate it better. But here, before they even spray the wheat to process it, they're spraying an extra layer of glyphosate on it. So you might not be allergic specifically to gluten, but your toxin cup is full of glyphosate. And so you feel bad when you do it. You have bloating, or you have those symptoms. When people take those away and then they slowly reintroduce them, they'll get symptoms quicker. It's like they start to be their own canary in the coal mine. Again, like listening to their body and relearning it. And their body's like, oh, whoa, we've been doing that for a long time, but it's actually not healthy for me. So I do have people remove them. And sometimes people can tolerate dairy. I do try to get them to do like the raw A2 natural, because the processing of dairy leads to breakdown of enzymes. And when we intake the dairy, our bodies don't have the enzymes that they should. So there's like 70% of people that have some sort of dairy sensitivity. And so again, I don't want to give up my cheese or my ice cream. I hear that all the time. But when people truly clean it out of their system, I say, don't do it forever, just do it for these weeks. And they're like, oh gosh, I really noticed. You don't have to eliminate it forever, but they do an 80-20 rule. Like, okay, take away 80% of it, keep 20% of it. Mm-hmm. And they notice a big life change in so many symptoms.
Completely. It's funny you talk about dairy. So big coffee drinker, obviously. It's very tough to think like, oh, I need to take my little bit of milk that I put in my coffee each morning out. Chocolate milk was one of my biggest things. And that was something that was recommended to me as an athlete. Hey, this is a great source of protein.
Yes.
What I have been conscious of is getting, and I don't really even know, this is a great question for you, like whole milk versus skim milk is slightly better. I don't know. Is there an option full like raw milk and stuff that might be better than these generic brands that are have a corner on the market? Kefir is one thing that I tried and I hated just because I thought it was going to be better for me. Any recommendations with something like that? Maybe a client that has already passed their 12-week program but wants to have a little bit of dairy.
Yeah.
Is there any that is good? And that's, totally open question.
That's a great question. Yes, there are. And like I mentioned before, A2, that's like the cow. It's like pure A2 raw milk. Okay. Obviously, just logically think about things, and it can help you lead to the endpoint answer. I was just telling a gal this because she messaged me this week about, like, I want to give my baby raw milk, and I'm afraid because I see all these things. I'm like, okay, let's just go through it logically. Mm-hmm. Like, the least amount of processing done to something, the better. Always processed food. You'd rather have a grape versus a raisin, versus a raisin soaked in sugar. Again, there's like these stages of the most natural from the root. And that's easily for our body to digest. Milk, again, our bodies have been so far gone from root that our bodies almost have to relearn how to digest it appropriately. So when people do raw milk, they start with a tablespoon. They're not chugging a glass of milk. Yeah. And so it's like being very intentional. It has really good probiotics in it as well. Like there's very good nutrients in raw milk. Getting it from a safe supplier. Iowa just legalized raw milk, which, it's wild that it was illegal to begin with, but it's official. So there's farms around here that do it, and you can go to the farm, know your farmer. I say this on every episode, know your farmer, find the good people that have organic practice. You do want organic milk as well. So whole milk, always better than skim milk. That stuff is they're just taking away nutrients and watering it down. So the real thing is the best.
Gotcha. Amazing. It's going to be tough, but I have been shifting a little bit towards less and less dairy, less cheese and things, but
I tell people too, almond milk, again, you have to watch. Just because it's an alternative milk doesn't mean it's healthy for you.
I'm so glad you're bringing this up.
There's a bunch of, read the back of a nutrient label, and if you look at an almond milk, it's not almonds and milk. It's not almonds and water. It's 1,000 different ingredients. So my daughter, when she was maybe 2, I started, or a little less than 2, I started introducing some raw milk. But I could tell she was a little more congested. She had a couple acne spots. And to me, milk, any dairy is mucus. So if kids come in with chronic ear infections, dairy. Acne, congestion. So I could just tell she was a little more nasally in her voice. And again, I'm a very in tune parent. So I'm like, absolutely, we're not going to use this right now. So she'll do some organic cheese every now and then, but the milk just wasn't for her. So I still wanted her to get the protein source. So I have this raw almond butter. This is how simple it is. Raw almond butter, all it is ground up almonds, a tablespoon of it into 12 ounces, it's like almost a quart of water. And then I blend it in there, and that's her almond milk for the day. So she's getting protein, and it's clean, and it's one ingredient, almonds and water. Amazing. So there's ways to get it that's very simple, and it doesn't have to include a lot of extra toxins. You're paying like for the convenience, you're paying for tons of additives.
Yes.
So
Completely. Man, oh man, that's so good. So just as far as like, you talked a little bit about paleo, very protein heavy diet. This is kind of something that I have a lot of conversations with athletes. Hitting your protein mark is so important for growth and for just athletic improvement and for nourishing your body in protein. So as far as like any recommendations to athletes, to kids that are growing their bodies, how should they view their plate maybe differently from what the pyramid that we were initially taught? Because that's totally what I was taught in school. The pyramid was the perfect guideline, and I realized really quickly that that wasn't true.
yes.
So very general, how should you view your plate maybe?
I will say they've like revamped it, and I think they even revamped it almost as bad as it was in the past. Like I think Fruit Loops are higher rated than like raw milk.
Yes, exactly.
So I mean, it's like that's when you're like, okay, maybe I shouldn't be listening to the government agencies to eat because this stuff they got it wrong with the food pyramid. They're admitting that. So now like they're even more wrong. So anyways, yeah, like when I was an athlete in high school, it was going over pre-game to eat pasta. Like let's eat 35 pounds of pasta to get, carb load is what we called it. And it's like, well, that's really not the way that we need to fill our plate. So you're right. Like, how about 2 chicken breasts and some carbs? I mean, you do need the balance, especially when you're an athlete, but when I see people just pound 2 large pizzas because that's the fuel for their system, it's like, you're not fueling your system. Your organs have to detox all of the extra stuff out of it. You're ultimately slowing yourself down. If you can do clean protein, and I know people get sick of chicken breasts, but it really is a great clean lean meat protein source. But even if you can tolerate, grass-fed beef, patties, turkey, like lean meats, but protein, like you mentioned, protein is so important. And so for me, going back to like the original diet thing, so in general guidelines, I like to have people do paleo. If they're working on a certain thing, so if I have an oncology patient, typically I'm shuttling them to more of like a keto diet. So high fat, moderate protein, very, very low carb. And that helps decrease glucose in the body. And glucose is a cancer cell's fuel source. So that's why we do it that way, depending on what's going on. If there's a kid that has seizures or neurological things, again, we do that because we find that the balance of ketones in the body helps diminish symptoms. So it really depends on what you're working on. But like you said, for an athlete in your case, real protein.
Yes.
Minimize the carbs, increase the protein.
Perfect. So I will continue on my path of coaching there and giving advice like that. That's wonderful to hear.
And hey, let's talk about this because you probably have to recommend protein powders because I'm sure a lot of your kids are doing protein powders.
Yes, completely. Supplements in that
sense. Let's look at that too. So there's a lot of like whey-based protein that in the whey is a lot of junk. So, everything that I have in the health spa has been vetted by me. I have Crohn's, so sometimes I really relied on liquid medicine to help me. And so I have actual medical food here. And a lot of it, it just depends on what type of base it is, but it's usually dairy-free. I mean, definitely it has very little fuel or filters. Yes. And then we have like paleo protein where it's like bone broth protein. And then it doesn't have to taste bad either. It actually tastes good. The newest line that we got in is Just Ingredients. So they do have a dairy base, but their dairy is like organic from, I don't know, like the New Zealand cows or something like that. They're very, very clean product. So like looking at protein powders, you want very minimal ingredients. You want to make sure that it's high quality nutrients that are in there. No cyanocobalamin, no folic acid. You want like the methylated vitamins, methylfolate, methylcobalamin. So those are just the things to look at when you're looking at protein.
Awesome. So that ingredients list, take a look at those things specifically.
Yes. If you're drinking Ensure, I have so many elderly patients that tell me they're drinking Ensure, and I'm like, no. Like that, we're gone with that. Throw it out. No more Ensure. Like if you look, one of like the first ingredients is high fructose corn syrup. Second ingredient might be corn. Like it's nothing but inflammatory soy, corn. If you see any of that on your shakes, out, because they're just creating inflammation in the body and it's full of sugar.
Oh, yes. That's amazing advice. So with that, we're speaking about athletes. Sleep is one thing that I recommend highly. Hey, you need to be getting your sleep to recover. For your energy systems. I mean, we're in the gym at 6:15 in the morning. There's so many kids, I would say at least 50 to 60% that are coming in there just absolutely wiped out from the day before and not getting enough sleep. And then also when we go into like competition, into games and everything, it starts 3 to 4 days before. It's not just the night before. So as far as sleep goes, what's a good general idea of like scheduling amount of hours? And then maybe we'll get into like how to de-stress yourself so that you can actually fall asleep as a younger individual who's got a lot going on.
Yeah, everybody's sleep schedule it's really dependent on the person, like the amount of sleep that they need to get. I always say, 8 hours is a good marker, plus or minus a couple hours, depending on how you function. If you're waking up feeling fatigued, well, then you're not sleeping enough. And I just like think of teenagers and I just think of the blue lights that they have in front of their face before bed. Not even adults too. Who am I kidding? Yeah. All of us, we're just scrolling these blue lights that are disrupting our circadian rhythm. I'll also talk about the lymphatic system. So a lot of people have heard about the lymph system in the body. So lymph detoxes us. The lymph is what our body's toxins dump into. So we have the lymph throughout our body, and then it goes out excretes through our organs. So our brain has like lymphatic system. So it's the cerebral spinal fluid is cleaning out our bodies every night. So if we're not sleeping, it can't turn on. So we need to have the adequate sleep for our brain to truly clean. So when we want to, prevent dementia, Alzheimer's, and neurological diseases, it just is another thing. Like we have to get good sleep so that our bodies can reset and clean. I will say like a tip, when you're waking up in the morning, the first thing you should be doing is going to a window, going outside, getting at least 10 to 20 minutes of natural sunlight. Just if you eat breakfast in the morning, you can fast. If you fast, that's amazing. I love intermittent fasting. But if you're take your cup of coffee, take your water and sit outside and just let the sun get into your eyes, because that will release chemicals in your body to be like, okay, now I'm supposed to be up. Here's my cortisol starting to work. So it's just a really big hormone cascade. And if we can get back into that circadian rhythm, you'll be a top performer. Awesome.
Goes back into having high energy, all the way around through and through. So a couple caveat questions to sleep, maybe some supplement recommendations, because, or maybe there's no recommendations and you should stay away from some things. And melatonin is definitely overused and in certain areas and things. So let's say for someone who's having trouble coming down from a long day or has a lot going on, what are some tactics they can use to help get good quality sleep?
Okay, so mind wandering, racing, hard to shut off. I hear that often. If you like to take baths, if that's a thing, Epsom salt baths, so the magnesium sulfate in the Epsom salts help dilate the blood vessels, help relax the system. So that's not only an amazing way to detox, it's an amazing way to calm the nervous system. So doing a hot bath before bed. And then, I recommend L-theanine. We have it, Select Balance, my supplement line, it's called anxiety support. So there's anxiety support, and then there's Serenity. We have a handful of mental health, but you'll see in the back that there's an ingredient called L-theanine. And L-theanine is an amino acid, and it helps calm the nervous system. So I tell people it's like taking anxiety support or the L-theanine is like almost taking a Xanax. So you would take it, 30 minutes before, like, okay, I know I'm going to this big meeting. I feel a little revved up. I will do this just to kind of calm my system. If you're having a hard time shutting your brain off at night, you take a couple of those at bedtime, and it will help. Again, start shutting down your brain, start helping your nervous system just relax, and doing it in a non-addictive, non-chemical way, which is very important. I've seen way too many people that have had really bad weaning off of antidepressants, anti-anxiety meds that they were doing just to sleep. So it is really important to watch what you're putting in your body.
Perfect. So as far as, I want to go into those supplements that you talked about eventually here. I had one other thing about sleep that I was maybe it'll come back to me, but you talk about L-theanine. I'm familiar with L-theanine. I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was actually in high school, later in high school. And it was all just because, focus levels and dopamine levels, and I could only focus on the things that I was interested in and things like that. And then I had my run-ins with Adderall and things there. And in college, I remember very specifically I'll give you a very good example of a vulnerable time in my life. There was a class that was very mundane and I did not want to do any work for. I did 13 assignments in 13 hours and stayed up all night long, and I took 30 milligrams of Adderall, and I did great. And then I was very fatigued, and then I was angry at the world, and it was my first run-in with the side effects of the chemical side of some of those things. And then I got into some of the natural things. L-theanine was one. There was a supplement called Thesis that I was taking for a little bit. In that direction, I'm trying to format a question based off of this. What should some of these younger individuals who need to focus be conscious of and be maybe looking for in a supplement that's going to maybe take them a little bit further away from the chemical side, the Adderalls and things like that?
Yeah, well, one, I'd say it's definitely a tapering approach. So if you're used to, if you got thrown on Adderall as a kid, no fault to your parents. They were just doing what was best. They saw you struggling. They really wanted to help you. And they didn't have the tools. So now you're listening to this, you have the tools.
Yes.
So when we go to ADHD, we look at all of the things that I talked to you about, the toxin load, like the overfilling of the cup, because that's typically what it is. And then also there's a unique part of like ADHD that is, you're just built different. Does that mean you're bad because you can't sit in a classroom and not be outside and like doing something super unnatural? Like, is it really you? You have a very creative brain. And so limiting that with a drug is just limiting your capabilities. So it's like, well, instead of just making someone fit into a schoolroom with 20 chairs that doesn't really belong there, like how can we, and we're not there as a society yet. There's Montessori schools, there is, what is it called? There's a different type of school. It's lost on me right now, but like they do more of like the arts and like they will go towards a child's talent. And so that's the big thing is like right now we're just in this fast-paced world of like, okay, you got to sit in this square room and you got to listen, no recess. And okay, if you can't do that, then give you medications. And like, it's just this bad cycle. So I just want to tell people, like, if you do have a brain that's functioning different, you're okay. And you're probably going to do some really cool things. Like allow for your creativity and don't suppress that with medications. Like this is your empowering thing to like get off of that. But until then, like you do have to feel like if you're feeling unrested in your body, you have to find that root cause. So I do tell people like the Serenity that we have that has other nutrients in it as well to support like 5-HTP, GABA, things that can help supplement our neurotransmitter systems, our amino acids to get us kind of functioning well. Like that, those are some things that you can do. Magnesium is really great if people have anxiety and they have a hard time. Magnesium, there's different types, but L-threonate is a really great type of magnesium to take before bed. Like there's different things that they can do to help ease them that is not related to chemicals. And also do your work and take care of your body and do an inventory of what are you getting exposed to toxin level wise? What is your diet like? And if you're 80+% of your neurotransmitters are made in your gut. They used to think that they were all made in your brain. It's not true. Most of them are made in your gut. So just think, if you have an inflammatory gut because you're feeding it junk, what are your neurotransmitters going to do? You're going to have anxiety, you're going to have depression. So it's like, how can we clean up our system?
Totally. Oh, I love hearing that. There are so many different external factors that play a role in ADHD and anxiety, and being in the high schools, I hear it all the time. So not only, okay, yes, if you are on a medicine, consider what's going in your body, consider how much sleep you're getting, consider how much stress is going in, in your daily life, and then also take a consideration of that medicine. I love how it's very holistic there. It's not just, hey, yep, let's treat that symptom. So.
And it's really taking the power, like, if you're dealing with athletes, like, they know their power. So now get the power up here. You got the power in your physical body, now get the power in your mental body. And if you can connect both of those, you will be unstoppable, because it's the mind. And like, if we're told we're a victim, like, oh, poor you have ADHD, or you have this diagnosis, which I've been told, and I know with my own health journey, you're a victim to the society. Well, what do they have for you? Medications. And then you're in this whole industry. It's like, you be empowered, and you take control of your life, and the things that come your way, these diagnoses or illnesses, see what part you had in those diagnoses and fix that. Yep. And once you fix your mind and you're empowered, you're unstoppable.
I love hearing that. Not having a victim mentality is something we preach all the time, in personal life and then in coaching.
So good. I'm so glad they have you.
Yes, it's great. So we've got alcohol, personal products, and then eventually into cancer risks. Let's just briefly maybe talk about alcohol. This is something that, I mean, it's very fun for us young in college and things like that. But I had my experience, and I really learned quickly how much it affected me and how it deterred some of my goals that with athletics and with school and with work. What's maybe a guideline kids or, younger college kids can have when thinking about alcohol, and then maybe into our mid-20s, when hopefully we're maybe transitioning out of drinking so much? What's a good guideline to maybe not let alcohol completely wreak and wreak havoc on our health?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just remembering back into the days when I didn't know better. And so it's hard. I don't, it's easy to be an adult and be like, you shouldn't do this. Yeah. But like, living in that world, I think, for me personally, why did I drink? Thinking back to it, probably some social anxiety, like wanting to fit in and not being comfortable in my skin, like I had to be a different person in order to like have fun. And now alcohol is very rarely in my life. Maybe I'll have a sip here and there, but it doesn't control me. And I like who I am as a person, and I'm very confident with that. And I can have a lot of fun, and I can act silly, I can dance, and like I can still have a good time without the alcohol. So I think it's an up level when you can do these things without having alcohol as your crutch.
I completely agree.
It's and then you're looking at finances as a college kid, and like, oh, let me get the cheapest Hawkeye vodka I can, and it's I'm just thinking of like flippy cups and stuff, and my poor organs. I'm sorry, I love you.
Yes.
But just thinking of even as you start aging, and maybe you want to share some wine with your wife, like getting organic. So wine, think about it, grapes, they're just sprayed with tons of chemicals, just like our corn is. So when you're looking at wine, there are companies out there that make organic wine that doesn't have like the high nitrate levels. So it will make you feel good, where you don't have to have a hangover in the morning. Yes. So there's little things like that. I think like as a college kid, you don't need to come home and have a beer. You don't need to have nightcaps. Like if you're going to have a fun tailgating day, set your limits. Like, okay, have fun that day. And then what are you doing to prep your body before and after?
Yes, exactly.
Those are the things, like drinking a lot of fluids, making sure you're hydrated. I know, like having a banana for some electrolytes, that's great. Beforehand, taking NAC, N-acetylcysteine, is amazing. It helps, it turns into glutathione into our bodies, and glutathione is our major antioxidant. So taking NAC before you drink is great. I do have a funny story. I was like with our supplement line, Alex, my partner, was going on his annual boys trip, and I was like, okay, I want you guys. They don't drink hard. They're in their late 30s, but I was like, I want you guys to have this like hangover supplement kit. So I made them some. I put prenatals in them because it had good B vitamins. So I didn't tell them that. And then NAC, and like Alex made a label. It said like the brew flu or something, and they took them the next day, and he's like, I never get hungover, and I felt so sick, and they all had hangovers. So what I realized is that NAC, you need to take it before you drink, not after. If you take it after, your body's trying to detox, and if you're already like struggling, your liver's struggling to begin with, it's like putting an extra pressure on. So that was funny. I made them all. He's like, they will never take your supplements from you after drinking again. But I mean, it's just funny, like, just trying those things. So supporting your system, your liver especially, that's why the NAC is really great for the liver. Doing anything like that beforehand is great.
Perfect. So one of the things, just my personal experience is I had my fun. I was drinking maybe 3 times a week in college, my freshman year. Then it became once a week on weekends, and then it became once every 3 weeks, once every month. Now, being out of college, within daily life, there's so many opportunities to just have casual drinks. And I was doing that for a little bit, having a beer here, having a drink there. And I realized how it wreaked havoc on my energy the next day. Mm-hmm. I was very in tune with how my body was feeling, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yes.
What am I doing? Like, this hurts my focus. Like, I'm trying to edit, and now I'm just absolutely dragging. I want to take a nap right now. Mm-hmm. Is that really worth it? So I recommend that to a lot of kids that I've coached and everything, and I kind of give them guidelines on that. But like you brought up, some of those supplements are great. It's going to happen. There's no doubt. However, manage it. Take those supplements. Make sure you're try not to pair up horrible sleep with a lot of drinking. Try not to pair up tons of sugar and really bad diet with drinking. Just do,
sugar, like the sugar mixed drinks too, right? Like, so sugar just crashes our immune system. So then we're not sleeping because we're going out partying, and then we have these sugary drinks mixed with the alcohol. It's just a poor combination. Mm-hmm. And like you mentioned, there's so many people that like they'll go out and casually have a beer or wine here or there, and then they feel the effects. And when you get older, like, there is a thing when you're not there yet, but like when you get to be 30, it's like it affects you differently. And so like you're not able to detox it as quickly. And then that's why when people say like they're 30, then all of a sudden they have hangovers, like it's a true thing. It's just harder for our bodies. But there's so many mocktails in different types of, like, there's so many natural drinks with like cordyceps mushrooms and lion's mane, and like, you take some of those, like that can be its own micro drug, like natural earth-based micro drug that will make you feel good, and you don't even have to have a sip of alcohol. So like get in touch with those, like start trying different ones out and see what feels good to you, and then you don't have to have a drink like that. You can have just some natural mocktail alternative.
Oh, I like that. That's something that I might take a look at. I've never really heard of. So
there's tons of options now, but like look at like mushrooms with different types of drinks, because they can be really, even the legal ones, like they can be very powerful for brain health. So
awesome. So nice.
I'll say, hey, I want to say that too, because you're a coffee guy.
Yeah.
Organic coffee, no mold, like bulletproof type coffee is good because they certify no mold, because there's tons of mold in coffee and chocolate, unfortunately. Tons of heavy metals in that. You think about rice or chocolate, or like when it's taking all the nutrients from the ground, and the ground has a lot of arsenic in it, like that you're eating that. So just when you're doing coffee, make sure it's organic and clean as possible. And also let's talking about mushrooms, there are mushroom alternative coffees. There's this one brand, it's like Think Something, and I'll have to look. I can put it in show notes.
Awesome.
But it's a mushroom base that tastes like coffee, but it is organic, and it gives you the uplifting effects that coffee would, and it's totally healthy without the mold or any of the bad ingredients. So just something to think about for someone that wants to try to reduce coffee consumption.
Perfect. Yeah, I was at 392 Cafe actually the other day, and I always get some additive mushrooms supplements into my coffees, and they also had something called chaga.
Yes.
And I tried that and loved it, and I'll switch that in every once in a while. So
Awesome. Yeah.
definitely highly recommend. Let's just real quick with coffee. So one of the switches that I've made is I used to have a Keurig for a long time, and then I switched out, and I realized, there's a lot of plastic that I'm throwing away. Like, I wonder how much of that I'm drinking.
Yeah.
And now I've done pour overs, just hopefully better.
Yes.
But one thing that I definitely haven't checked on is what kind of coffee I'm drinking. I'm a lot of Starbucks, so maybe that's something that I need to consider.
Yeah. I definitely would say if you're going to go out and splurge, like you said, that cafe, do something that's more local, natural. I know right across the street we have Jumble, and they have organic coffee, and so it's so important. Like Starbucks, sorry, but they don't care about their clientele in that way. They care about the experience. They don't care about your health. I mean, just look at the amount of sugar in any of the drinks that they have that they're feeding people. It's like, nope, there's better ways. So I'd say stay local when you're looking at that. If you can find a coffee shop that has organic, I mean, Dubuque, Iowa, we're not big. We have multiple locations that have organic options, and then switching it in. And, again, if you're doing it at home, get a mold-free source if you're going to do it, because it's really important.
Awesome. Maybe let's talk about water systems.
Okay.
This is something that I recently just started to kind of not overboard with, but really, really focus on. I got a water filter called AquaTrue. I'm not sure if it's a reverse osmosis system.
Okay.
What are your recommendations with general guidelines with water?
Okay.
And then maybe some products that are cost effective for young people in a new household that they can implement.
Oh, you throw me on here. There's some like that. I'm like, okay, I'm blanking on the names, but I'll make a list for you so that we can post it. Water, air, very important. Again, air includes mold-free air, right? Water, chemical-free. Like, I remember when I moved in, we're in Piasta right now, and I moved into my house in 2016, and I took a bath, and I was like, I smell like I'm swimming in a pool. There was so much chlorine that they dump into chlorine, fluoride. They're neurotoxins. Sorry to say. And like, if you look at the history of fluoride that they use commercially, it's like a byproduct of a waste. It's not even high quality fluoride. So, I mean, that's neurological damage for us. So it's so important to make sure that you're drinking clean water. And so, like you said, the one that you were talking about, you said reverse osmosis. Very good point, because a lot of people will be like, well, it's cleaning it all out, but reverse osmosis really takes it all out. Like, it strips everything. So if you're doing reverse osmosis 100%, you need to remineralize your water. So I don't know if you're doing that.
I'm not sure if I am either.
So put in like pink Himalayan sea salt is really easy.
Yes.
You put that in your water. There's mineral drops that you can put in. But again, it's stripping out the minerals that you're typically taking. So you want to put those back in if you have reverse osmosis.
Gotcha.
So we have a whole water filtration system here at the health spa, and I have one at my house. I use a few different brands. Before I got into the brand I use now, I use Radiant Life. So they're good. They have a water filtration and whole house conditioning system. And then they have a whole, like a kitchenette system. So you plug it into your sink, and then you have that side water. It not only cleans and filters, there's a restructuring agent to it. Water, I mean, we could do 2 podcasts on water. I mean, it's so much. And like the structuring of water, like they have a special device that it goes through and it stimulates like natural spring water production. Like it changes, it's because it's like the electrolytes. It changes when we look at like electromagnetic field of our body and we talk about the benefits of like walking in the ocean or on a beach. It's because of the ions that are getting exchanged with the earth into our bodies. We're constantly releasing ions into exchanging, right? So that's why we talk about grounding and all of that. So like our water has that potential as well. So it's water can be very sacred. You can talk, like even with like the IV fluids that we have in the room, like I don't want a nurse that's in a bad mood to be giving me an IV infusion, because water holds it holds energy. So if we have negative energy that's getting radiated out into the field, it's getting connected. So anyways, that's a big spiel about water. But I mean, water is very important to us. So like setting intentions before we even drink water, like thank you for what you're providing, and getting something that is clean. So the Radiant Life system's good. It removes the impurities. It actually remineralizes the water, so you don't have to do that step yourself. Totally. There is an Eco brand that I like. It's like Eco. It's called Eco. I think Gary Breckus talks about it. Probably. But before that, he was on it. I've had an Eco hydrogen water jug for many years, and so I hydronate my water. There's different benefits to that. Again, it's all about like cellular energy exchange, the ions, the energy. So we use that. They also have cleaning supplies. So like, instead of using, like, get rid of all of that junk that's underneath your cabinet sink. You don't need bleach and those chemicals that are not good for you to breathe in or for your body, your stuff. Going back to mold. People are like, oh, you have mold, use bleach. Well, bleach does not clean the pores of anything. So the mold actually gets drove into the pores deeper with mold. So we don't like to actually, if you're a mold expert, you'll never hear mold experts saying use bleach to clean mold. So anyways, it's just another thing to say, get rid of your toxins. You don't really need bleach. They have it's called hydrogenous acid or something. So they use a water purification. They use H2 water, sea salt, and it makes a very potent, you can't drink it, but a potent toxic, like it removes all of the germs and debris without having chemicals. So anyways, there's different things with water that you can do to clean and drink. So
perfect. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the household use. This is maybe a quicker question. Let's say fast lifestyle, we're going into a gas station and we want to make a choice on water, right?
Yeah.
What are some things, just even if there is any, what do we want to grab maybe?
Yeah, okay, so the thing with that, if you're drinking water, whatever, it's in plastic, right? So Fiji water is typically a brand that has been tested that is higher quality. You don't ever know how they store the water. What if that water was sitting outside baking in 150 degree weather for 3 days before it got put in? Like then all that plastic leaching into the bottle, right? So if there's glass bottles that are available, those would be probably higher quality. They're carrying the Mountain brand water is really typically a good brand. But then, like I said, Fiji water is something that they've done tests on that's clean. But again, you're only as clean as like the plastic that it's stored in. So it just say, if it's like the natural spring water or something, usually it's coming from a tap. If it's a Nestle brand, it's coming from a tap. So gotcha. I wouldn't, those name brand ones, I try to steer clear of, but yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Well, perfect. So I don't know how we're doing on time, but I know next question would be about personal products. We talked a lot about like toothpaste and fluoride free. I know that I've made that switch. No fluoride in my toothpaste. Waters, obviously, we just discussed that. I've got this new system.
Deodorant,
sunscreen, those things.
Yeah.
Perfect. What are some, major things that us younger generation just need to be conscious of, like as we come into college, out of college and things?
I feel like deodorant and body spray or like cologne is a couple of the major like college triggers. You're just so you want to smell good, you want to do all that, but those usually have a lot of chemicals in them. A lot of deodorants have aluminum in them, aluminum and PEG 40 PEG glycol is just a huge toxin in our body, and a lot of people have allergic reactions to it. But just think, if you're putting aluminum into your armpits, which is right next to the major lymphatic system in our chest, it's going, like, that's where we talk about breast cancer in women, and making sure that they're not putting aluminum there, because again, it's going right into that bloodstream, right by all of those major blood vessels, lymphatic movement. So yeah, we try to get something that is more natural. I mean, there's a lot of natural brands out there. You have to find yours. I know It took me a long time to get my partner Alex to switch over because there wasn't anything that would work well. But there is Tom's deodorant that he actually uses now that has been great, and that it smells good and it's chemical free. And again, I tell people this all the time, you don't have to go from 100 to 0. Go from 100 to 50.
Yep.
Find something that is just 10 times cleaner. And then once you're used to that, then you'll be on the lookout for something that's 10 times cleaner than that. So you don't have to like make all these drastic changes in one day. Once you get done with one of your cleaning products or your shower gel, like toss that out and find something that's cleaner.
Yes.
So it's just one product at a time, clean it out, get something that's a little bit healthier.
Gotcha. Perfect. Leads right into cancer risks. 24 years old. I see a lot of people around me, a lot of grandparents and things getting cancer, uncles, aunts getting cancer. I know that Iowa, dabbling into the politics of Iowa and how they're spraying things and everything, it's something that makes me very angry.
Yeah.
About what are they doing to our generation? What are they going to do to my kids' generation? I'm not on board with these horrible things that are going to come and happen to our bodies because of just these regulations, and we can't go after some of these companies that are literally just destroying our population.
Yeah.
How can we, in our personal lives, how can we be conscious of some of our cancer risks? And then what can we maybe do to hopefully change the climate in our state, in our community?
That's really a good question.
I know it's a big one and stuff. And
yeah. So I was trained as an integrative oncology provider through the metabolic approach to cancer. Dr. Nasha Winters, I talk about her. She's one of the lead heads in this. But it's cleaning up your terrain, like your body. What can you do to decrease the cup of toxins? And as you mentioned, like we can't always change regulations as one person. We can do it as a spending power. What are we spending our money on as this generation? Can we make sure that we're doing, like, if you don't know of the Clean 15, Dirty Dozen, you can access that list on your phone. There's an app for it. You can just quickly search it. What is the Clean 15? So like the cleanest foods that don't have as much junk on them, or the Dirty Dozen, where you should never buy it that's not organic. The pears, the strawberries, the spinach has the highest amount of pesticides. How can we like clean our bodies in that way? So it's all about, again, the train in our body and our mind. And so I think that the mind, from all of the oncology patients that I've gotten to work with, if our mind isn't controlled, if we don't understand the basis of where it came from, because there's a lot of times an emotional root into cancer or into chronic illness, guilt, shame, fear, like acceptance, there's something there. And especially breast cancer, nurturing, that kind of thing. If we don't address the emotional component to why the disease became prevalent to begin with, we have a hard time healing it. So again, it's everything that we've been talking about this whole time. If you can keep your environment as clean as possible, you might not be able to control that, but you inside your house, you can control the air quality, the radon, the mold, the water. You can control your own internal environment.
Perfect. Wonderful stuff there. Well, I've got a couple more questions. This is again, everything that I'm speaking to you about today is kind of just coming from my background of like what can help me, and then obviously that can help so many people around me. And one of them is sexual health, and that is I want to eventually have kids. Products, guidelines for me to make myself healthy, because I know my wife is doing the same thing. She's completely overhauling her health and taking all things into account.
Yes.
I want to do the same thing. I want to give her the same effort.
Awesome.
What are, just a couple recommendations?
Love
maybe?
that. Thank you. It takes two to tango, so that's so important. It takes up to 3 months for your sperm to actually get ready to release. So you have 3 months time, and men don't really typically think of that. It's just like, oh, I'm going in for the party and done. No, like you have your body, so you're just as important as the woman because you're giving your child the stuff, the epigenetic, the genetic components of your body. So what are you doing to make that sperm as healthy as it can be? I tell every man that's trying to conceive multivitamin, our multivitamin plus is what we use at Select Balance, and NAC. NAC, again, I was telling you about that with the drinking. Again, it's a major antioxidant in our body. It helps increase sperm strength, motility, endurance. So like it is making the guys strong. So I always tell them, and it's detoxing your body and helping your liver. So those are the two things that I always have the men on, and really being conscious of how your lifestyle is, 3 months prior to even trying to conceive. Really work on that.
Awesome. You talked about filling up your cup with toxins and things, and that reference, it's like, I want to give my kids an empty cup.
Yes.
And
totally.
The whole reason why I asked that question and I ask these lifestyle questions. As far as, so you talk about some of the supplements there. What are things that we want to stay away from and like before we conceive or before we are trying to get pregnant?
Get rid of this thing out of your pocket. I mean, I think that's really a thing for dudes. Thrown in your pocket. It's radiating your testes as Mark pulls it out of his pocket right now. There's EMF shields. I have a safe sleeve on mine right now. Typically it's in like a full thing, but safely sleeve is really good. Like I can tell because I'm very sensitive, but there's different EMF protection devices that you can throw on your phone that will lessen the emittance of EMFs. So EMFs are important, especially in that region. What else? Your question was, what else to help?
Yeah, what else can we stay away from? I know a little bit of food and stuff, but exactly what you're talking about of heating the testes. That totally. Is 100%. And this is my wife telling me this directly. Like, hey, quit putting your laptop on your lap.
Yes, please.
Those kinds of things. So if there's any other things that kind of come to mind,
I'd say like in the journey too, conception can be stressful, especially if someone has like a history, women, especially when they come to me and they have PCOS, endometriosis, anything like that feel like they might have a harder time conceiving, then it gets stressful versus fun. And it's the mind part of it as well. So like, how can you de-stress your mind so that when you're doing it, you're totally in the present moment and not doing it as I have to do this to get pregnant. Like you're actually enjoying the process. And I know but that really, it isn't complex. There's been billions of babies born. So like we've been doing this for a long time. So it's just, we get in our own way. So if you can have a clean, healthy diet, take a couple supplements to help the supporting system and kind of watch your EMF exposure. I think those are 3 major things.
Amazing. I've just got a couple more things. So 2 that kind of play a role together. So you talked about some of your supplements that you have here. What are some other products that you would recommend to young, healthy people here at the Health Spa?
Honestly, without knowing them personally, because I do like to take a personalized approach, everybody could use a multivitamin plus. I think that's just something that's easy, especially for gentlemen. It's 2 capsules a day. It gives you your minerals and vitamins. A lot of times we just don't get enough from our food. Our soil quality has been lacking lately. So until that stuff starts shifting in our agriculture, having a supportive multivitamin to me is a really important thing. Then it's like testing. What are your vitamin D levels? Do you need to support that? Typically, an average Iowan, I've tested thousands of vitamin D at this point. 28 is our average number. We really want to be at 60 to 80 for general immune health. So Iowans are 30 is what Western medicine says is normal, 30 to 100, but I like to get people at 60. So typically we need some vitamin D support. And then from that, it just depends. Like I am a big proponent of like, you, Mark, get your hormones tested. Like, you feel good. Like, what is your testosterone? Yes. Make sure that you have a baseline so that in a year or 2, when things are changing, your body's changing, that you have something to go back on. Like, oh, I always had this and now I'm at this. So it's good just to have markers.
Amazing. That's actually something that I've considered recently, just like to have that baseline, or, hey, can I be functioning at a higher level?
Yes.
Yeah, it's something I definitely consider.
Mm-hmm.
You've touched on this a little bit of not going 0 to 100 on things with lifestyle and changes. Let's look at budget. Those, I'm working. I couldn't afford a lot of things in college, but I was starting to become conscious of them.
Yes.
Where should we, I think we really touched a lot on this, but where should we start with how much money should we be putting towards some of these health things? For me, I think my health is much more important than a job could ever be. I want to be able to move when I'm 50. I want to be able to do all these things. I don't want to work myself to death and then, I get to retirement and I can't move and I'm so overweight that there's nothing left. So I'm willing to put in a good amount of my budget, my money towards these things. Let's maybe do 3 categories: for a high schooler, for a college, college student, and then also a couple years out of college. Maybe what are 3 things to focus on for each of those individuals? So, for example, for a lot of these high schoolers, I'm like, hey, let's talk about your diet.
Yes.
Clean eating, your water, and your sleep. Okay, very basic.
Yes.
Okay, now maybe step it up with our college kids. Let's talk about some supplementation. Let's talk about, making sure, our household around us, our dorms and stuff. What would you, I'll let you kind of.
You're answering the question. So like high schoolers, you probably don't have a lot of extra income to spend on different things, but watching your diet and allowing, like, chicken breast doesn't have to be expensive for your parents. So like, think about a piece of pizza, like a pizza pie, like costs $25. Like you can do a lot with, protein sources without having to get that. So having your parents help you out, like if they are getting the food for you, like making better judgments that way, doing cleaner eating. What are you what are you brushing your teeth with? It doesn't have to be, expensive. We have Risewell here with a non-fluoride free hydroapatite, the newer forms of like healthy dentistry. $12 a bottle, it will last you a long time. There's simple things like that last a long time. Put a air filter in your room, again, $30 to $60. Always have that in your room going. There's just those things. When you get to college, doing the ARNP test, there's a water pitcher that I'm blanking on the name right now, but it is Brita. Okay, you've heard everybody has a Brita. Britas aren't really great. They're superficial. They do take out like the big couple, maybe the chloride, but they're not taking out the heavy metals toxins. So there are better ones. They cost a little bit more, but it's worth the investment, especially if you're doing water in your dorm all the time. And then what are the other toxin exposures that you are exposed to there? Like beauty products. Oh, yeah. One at a time. Just start changing one thing at a time. Take that lotion that you have from Bath and Body Works, throw that away, and start with coconut oil. Coconut oil is cheap. You can use it to cook with, and you can slather it on your skin. Olive oil. I mean, that stuff's natural. It's very cheap. Like if you're on a budget, do those things until you can, start investing into a little more expensive product.
Perfect. Well, yeah, I'm always conscious of that. I'm like, there's so many things that I would love to do, but the budget just doesn't allow for that. I think that slowly but surely just been weeding things out and weeding products. And that's exactly how it goes. And again, just being conscious from the beginning and knowing what you're putting in your body, that will stop you from like, maybe that's not a good choice. And when you're at college, like, where is your gym located? Do you have access to a sauna? Because if you're sweating and you're working out, that's huge. That's a free exercise to do to not only help detoxify your cells, but to get you in a good mental and physical shape. So like find those things that are free and utilize them. I love it. What great advice. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for all the knowledge.
Oh my gosh. This was fun. Thank you so much. I love, like, if especially younger generation is willing to listen and like really yearning this knowledge, it's so much fun to share. It's like what I could have done and what I wish that I would have told my younger self. So now I get to do it.
For real. And I love hearing it. So
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mark. You were a great interview host. You can take over my job next time. So
no, thanks so much for having me.
all right. Have a great day.